Francis Ngannou is about to get paid fighting Tyson Fury. Ngannou officially left the UFC at the beginning of this year after fighting out his contract in 2022. Monday, on the MMA Hour, Ngannou said he is about to make more money in this fight than all his 14 fights combined in the UFC. What I will tell you is that compared to what I was making for my UFC fight, it's day and night. It's life-changing. And it would be the same thing if I was fighting in the PFL first. What I was making, what I did make in my last UFC fight, doesn't even count. It's not close, anywhere close. Ngannou passed a lucrative contract with the UFC to fight Jon Jones at UFC 285 because the contract was too restrictive. Ngannou reiterated that he will make more for facing Tyson Fury, but also added that the UFC's offer was not exactly what it seemed. There was a trick there and it was bad. It was just an order for me to put the pen on the paper. There was just one big number and then behind it the paper was blank, pretty much. Reports circulating estimate Ngannou's payday to be in the 8 figures. Even though the fighter didn't confirm the numbers, the fight itself is already a win for Ngannou. He essentially got everything he wanted negotiating his free agency, and did so despite an enormous amount of doubters and backlash. Ngannou will face lineal heavyweight champion Tyson Fury in a boxing match on October 28 in Saudi Arabia. Jamahal Hill relinquishes his UFC title. Hill announced in his YouTube channel late Thursday night that he will relinquish his UFC light heavyweight title due to surgery after suffering a ruptured Achilles tendon. It's an unfortunate turn of events for Hill. He became the light heavyweight champion after a unanimous decision victory over Glover Teixeira back in January. The fighters fought for a vacant title following a shoulder injury suffered by former champion Jiri Prochazka. Hill and Prochazka were expected to fight late this year, but this plan has obviously been scrapped now that the champion is injured. Typical recovery time for this type of injury runs from approximately 8 to 12 months. And it could stretch even longer, depending on rehabilitation. In an emotional video, Hill said the UFC supports his decision to vacate his belt, and they assured that a title shot awaits him when he returns from injury. It remains to be seen what the UFC will do with the vacant light heavyweight title. What do you think? Should the UFC find someone to fight Jiri Prochazka for the vacant belt? Or should the winner of Ian Blachowicz vs Alex Pereira be crowded the new light heavyweight champ? Mayra Bueno Silva finishes Holly Holm at UFC on ESPN 49. Mayra made Holm tap to a standing guillotine choke in the second round of the main event at UFC on ESPN 49. Holm left her neck exposed as the two grappled against the fence, and Bueno Silva capitalized, putting herself into title contention with an upset win. In her Octagon interview, Mayra called out for a shot at the UFC bantamweight title against ex-champ Juliana Pena. The belt has recently been vacated by the retiring two-division champ Amanda Nunes. Here's what fighters had to say about this main event. It is still to be determined what the UFC is doing about the vacant belt. But for sure, Bueno Silva cemented herself as one of the top contenders in a now wide-open women's bantamweight division. Who do you think should fight for the vacant women's bantamweight title?